Irregular meeting perhaps of the Indianola City Council to order March 25th, 2020, 6 p.m. In the council chambers and in other places. So we'll call this meeting to order. First of all, thanks for everybody coming in, and Ryan for your yeoman's work in terms of getting this lined up, and also to Doug Fulton. If you would please face the nearest American flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. All right, Jackie, I understand you're there, so roll call, please.
Councilmember Hewlin.
Here.
Parker.
Present.
Kling.
Here.
Schroeder.
Present.
Southall.
In attendance.
Marchant.
Present.
And Mayor Shaw.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment this evening. We do have a couple things in terms of hearing, I understand, a little bit later, and then also in terms of the street discussion, which we'll read into record just a little bit later. Anyone else?
I have not received anything else.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to the consent agenda here. I do have a question. Is council anything to pull here on the consent agenda?
No.
Very good. Before we get going too much, please remember for those of you who are on the telephone, that it would be appropriate for you not only to, of course, mute your phone while you're not talking, but also to please give your name when you are talking, so that the persons keeping records, as well as Jackie, would know who is speaking at that current time. That was one thing which Mr. Fulton, the legal counsel, has asked that we clarify moving forward. So that's really the primary rules there in that regard. So just keep that in mind, if you would, please, counsel. We've got a number of different items here on the consent agenda. I do have one issue that I want to raise just in terms of issue K, so I'm going to pull that at this time. But if there's nothing else, the agenda items are following. A, approval of agenda. B, February 27 and March 2, 2020 minutes. C are the applications, just one, a renewal Class B wine, Class C beer, Class E liquor, and Sunday sales privilege for Danley Corporation doing business as Indy 66, number 928, located at 1201 North Jefferson. Item B is a noise permit application for Indianola Classic Car and Truck Show and Shine for April 18, May 23rd, June 20th, July 25th, August 15th, September 19th, 2020 from 4 to 7 p.m. on those days. Item E is a noise permit application for the Warren County Speedway on April 11th, April 18th, May 2, May 15, May 30th, June 13th, June 27th, July 10th, July 24th, and August 1 and August 15th, with a possible race also on August 22nd and August 29th. That would be from 6 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. Item F is a noise permit for the Rowdy Persons at the Indianola Public Library for their summer kickoff party on May 28, 2020. Item G is a special event application for Indianola Public Library summer kickoff party to be held on May 28, 2020. Item H is approval of sidewalk use agreement for DHG Properties LLC doing business as West Hill Brewing Company located at 219 West Salem Avenue. Item I is a resolution setting a public hearing for April 20, 2020 regarding an amendment to Chapter 165 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to bulk storage of petroleum products. Item J is a resolution approving the agreement for janitorial services at City Hall, Activity Center, and Library with a 6-foot geek. Item K is pulled at this time. Item L is a resolution authorizing submission of an assistant firefighters grant for the City of Indianola Fire Department for assistance in purchasing an aerial apparatus. Item M is a resolution authorizing the submission of a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response, also known as SAFER grant, for the City of Indianola Fire Department. Item N is a resolution approving the schedule of fees for the city of Indianola for fiscal year 2021. Item O is prior and final approval of urban revitalization designations. Item P is resolution approving salaries, and item Q is claims on computer printout for March 25, 2020.
Bob Kling, I move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Parker, discussion on those. Roll call, please. Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Sorry, had to unmute.
that's okay.
Yes.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Thanks, Jackie. The only thing I have on K, Ryan, I noticed the resolution approving the purchase of a 2020 Ford Explorer utility vehicle for the police department in the amount of $32,932. That's in the CIP, right, as I understand?
Yes.
Okay, so I thought. Just a quick question, is there any examination of other vehicles, SUVs, such as, I noticed that the county has gone to Durangos, and that the price point on Durangos is substantially less than the Ford Explorer. I was just curious if there's any examination of that.
The Durangos they're not going to be making the Durangos much in the future. Dodge made that announcement about within the last year. We have not gone through and done an analysis of our fleet in terms of, the last analysis we did was going from the normal Interceptors to the SUV, but in terms of Ford, Chevy, or Dodge, we have not.
Okay, a good explanation. I was just curious. Not that I've been pulled over or anything, but I just noticed the county has gone to Durangos, and some other jurisdictions around have gone to new Durangos as well. So,
Yeah.
and maybe I looked at the state bid list, and it was, I think about 27,000, so it was less than the 32,900. But
Yeah.
I figured there were not some apples to be compared there. So,
Well,
thank you.
and just when you look at equipment and outfitting the equipment, that has that's a big factor into when you change out your fleet or start rotating it out. Now you have to start also purchasing different types of equipment to get outfitted as part of. And what our department does is we will reutilize piece of equipment where we can, light bars or internal stuff that needs to be outfitted. So there is some economies of scale in having that same body style or make that certainly helps out and creates some efficiencies and some savings elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I knew that. I knew that was probably the case. I just thought of maybe the separation that separates the officer from the person in the back seat, but I figured there were other things there as well. All right, thanks, sir, on that. I've read Resolution K already, I guess, so we would just need a first and a second.
Move to approve.
I'll move to a second.
Thank you. Did you get the first one, Jackie?
I did, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Greta, for that. Discussion? Thanks, Jackie.
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Council. Item 6 on council reports. First item is discussion and direction regarding the recommendations from the Administration and Policy Committee on a proposed timeline for consideration of a draft city policy rules and procedures document, as well as the codification project.
Hello, Councilman Kling here. Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we got you, Bob.
Okay. No, we've had this, we looked at it, legal has looked at it. I'd like for us to, if we can, go ahead and move forward and put it on our, if we can, as soon as possible, on our next agenda.
Mayor, can I jump in just from a staff perspective on a particular matter?
Yes, go ahead.
So just by way of background, and this is for Councilwoman Hewlin and Schroeder, on the agenda, it says, as well as the codification process, or project. The codification is it's a holistic review of the city code and reformalizing that. That's recommended that it's done, every 5 to 8 years or so. The city of Indianola hadn't done it previously, for quite some time, and I think about a year or two ago, the direction or performance goal given to then City Clerk Diana Bolin to go ahead and start this codification process. So we work with a vendor, I think it's called Sterling Codifiers, or Iowa Codification. So what they do is they will go through the entire document and update references to city code, or highlight things that are outdated or not needed anymore. Councilman Southall's brought up previously that, like, for instance, bicycle registration, that's something that the city hasn't done for quite some time, but that's on the books. So it's a process to go through those simple things. Diana was nearing completion of that right before she retired, and so that's done. So that's the context, the history of that project. It's a very laborious process. One of the things that would come out of it is the ability to, if you've searched our city code online, it's one massive PDF, and so you have to scroll through hundreds of pages to find what you're looking for. As part of this process, what it would do is it index our different code sections, so it make it much easier for anybody using the code to find what they're looking for, so improves our transparency and usability on that. So I bring that up from a historical perspective, the context and the legwork that has gone into that already, but from a staff's perspective, and to Councilman Kling's point, if you're gonna do anything with the city council rules and procedures, I would recommend that you do it after the codification process. That way, any sort of updates, it's all done at the same time. You don't wanna get something out before any sort of codes.
So at this point, is the codification process done?
Yep.
Okay.
Diana had got it to a point as far as she could, and then Andy and Jackie took it up and finished the process and worked with legal. Legal's reviewed it and
Great.
has given its thumbs up to proceed.
Great.
And again, this is a process that should be done pretty much every 5 to 8 years.
So what we would do, on the codification, there'd be 3 readings, correct?
Yes.
So, to match up with what you said, we'd wanna set the 3 readings for the codification process up as soon as we possibly can, and then on the council meeting of the 3rd reading, we would bring forward the resolution for the rules of procedure.
Assuming there's no other changes that you guys would have to the rules or
Yeah.
any other direction on that, but yes. One thing we would need to do is we would need to set this up as a public hearing, because as part of the codification, it's the entire code. So that would include the zoning code, and the zoning code requires a public hearing, so.
That'd be what I'd be in favor
Yeah.
of doing is, let's get it set up and get the process started, and then the rules of procedure would fall on the 3rd reading of the codification. After the 3rd reading of the
Right.
codification.
That's exciting and a great opportunity to get everything up to date, so that's good.
Southall here, have we received enough direction to move forward?
If everybody's
Yeah.
on board, yes.
So
Yeah.
we have the public hearing at the next meeting,
You'd have a resolution setting the public hearing.
at their next meeting.
Correct.
Then the public hearing, and then approve first reading that after the public hearing, and then 2 more meetings after that for
Correct.
the following 2. Okay.
Right, so
All
you're
right.
looking from mid-May,
Okay,
June.
okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay.
think we're done.
Do we have everybody on the, is everybody still on the phone?
Everybody good?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
We'll move on then to the mayor's report. Again, Mayor Kelly Shaw on the telephone, starting with the community update. Want to thank Ryan and his crew at City Hall for locking things down and keeping things safe. As we know, it's pretty extraordinary times here, and so I'm thankful for that. I also want to be thankful for and thank the county for their excellent work in terms of public health. They've been keeping us abreast of various developments. And of course, be remiss if I didn't thank the first responders, both Indianola Police Department, Indianola Fire Department, of course, as well as Warren County Emergency Management. Again, communication has been really good on this end, and I know Ryan has kept us all in the discussion. Related to that, did want to point out that I received a number of calls over the last several days regarding shelter in place. It seems as if people think that would be necessarily a good policy. While it has been discussed via the state of Iowa, the mayors do have that authority to call a shelter in place once an emergency has been declared, which I did last week. I'm of the mind that certainly the governor has better data on this than I do. And as a result, while I've been contacted a couple times regarding this, I will not call a shelter in place until appropriately done so by the city, by Governor Reynolds in that regard. So I did touch base with both the Iowa Department of Public Health as well as Representative Orth. Representative Orth has been doing a nice job as well, keeping his constituents informed here. So while we're thanking everybody, we'll say that as well. As you probably know, I did last week declare an emergency declaration. That is just really to bring formally to forefront the various emphasis on social distancing and also to invoke police powers should police powers be required. Thank goodness so far those have not been required, and I do know that the police are out doing their good work in that regard. But please, per CDC guidelines and also Iowa Department of Health guidelines, you are a citizen watching this online or listening. Please do follow those guidelines to the T, if at all possible. Social distancing, element of 6 feet, of course, and then keeping at home as much as possible. So again, we're watching what the state is doing quite closely. Iowa Department of Public Health has their eyes on the radar and whatnot, and as a result, we want to thank the state for that too. And then the final issue associated with that is that earlier today, I received an email, and maybe council did as well, for the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And there are going to be a number of grants, not only for the city to apply for, but also for businesses to apply for. I imagine, Ryan, you get those. But we'll certainly keep an eye on those, and we'll disseminate those through various organizations here, from the chamber to Iowa or to Warren County Economic Development, and then also via the city's webpage as those things get going. Obviously, it's a very extraordinary time for everybody to be rowing together in this regard, and so just wanted to say thank you for your hard work in that regard. Ryan, I know you've been on front line there. Anything to add on that?
Just that the team has been fantastic. They've been very calm. They've been very flexible. They've brought a lot of humor and grace to this situation. One of the things we talk about as a team during our regular updates is trying to keep a sense of normalcy for those we serve. In a time of uncertainty, the best thing to have is a level of certainty, and we want to make sure everybody knows that we're there. Our partners in everything have been great. We are in regular contact with Simpson College. We've been in contact with our main tourist groups, the Balloons, the Opera, the Fair, the Chamber, the school district. So it's been, as you said, the partnerships are strong and everybody's working together, and it's been fantastic. We have a number of shout outs that we'll include in the weekly email that comes out on Friday. So it's everybody's doing a great job.
Very good, Ryan, thank you. That's largely community update again, lots of people keeping to themselves, which is probably a good thing. Item B on page 127 of your agenda is consider nomination of Susan Glick, the IMU Board of Trustees, from March 25th of 2020 until June 30th of 2020.
Move to approve.
Okay, second.
First and a second. Any discussion? Very good. Jackie?
Councilmember Kling,
No?
Schroeder,
Nay.
Southall,
Nay.
Marchant,
Nay.
Hewlin,
Nay.
Parker.
No.
Page 130, consideration nomination for Susan Glick, IMU Board of Trustees from July 1st, 2020 to July 30th, 2026.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'll just say something real quick here, Council. I wish this is the third female nomination I've put up. And given what just occurred in terms of item B, I can only assume that your vote on item C will be the same. All three of these females who have put their names up have done so in an attempt to serve the city. All of them have had experiences on boards and commissions previously, and shortly all three of them will be voted down. So I would appreciate some direction in terms of what you folks are looking for in terms of these nominations. We've had this discussion a little bit, but I haven't received much information from you. And so this, again, Susan, I understand you're in the room. Thank you for applying. But again, if you folks give me some direction, I would just assume not keep running females up the flagpole to have you vote unanimously down.
Well, first of all, I'll say it. You're using the word female. Yes, they all just happen to be female, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. I guess my question is, a few previous meetings, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, you'd said that you would not be bringing this applicant not forward. I do know that you'd received another application. I'm assuming you talked to both. I'm just trying to figure out why you brought this one forward after you said you would not.
Good question, John. I was talking to Mr. Rosga, and Mr. Rosga encouraged me to. And the reason why Susan is up here, Susan had applied previously. I've not talked to the other individual yet, but I likely will. Given the outcome of this vote, or I'll continue to look for other females that I feel meet the various criteria. When Ms. Schroeder asked me previously, I gave you a justification in terms of the persons that I searched for. And again, it seems as if Susan, given her experience on school board, her understanding of public policy, and her long time dedication to the city would be a good person to have here. As a result, John, I've talked a number of times about the importance of gender equity, and I will stand on that record till my last day in terms of appointing females to boards and trying to balance those various boards. As you know, and I know you're not opposed to females in this regard, but I've put up three, and soon all three will have been voted down. So it is frustrating. I mentioned back in January when council decided that they wanted to move this date back, that I was afraid that this was going to happen. And so all three have been denied, and so that's frustration. Mr. Rosga, whom I know you've talked to, is frustrated, and so I was trying again since Ms. Glick had applied, trying to get that board complete with a female in that regard. And so that's the primary reason, out of respect for Mr. Rosga, I know you respect him as well, and I appreciate what he's going through. Again, I appreciate the position that IMU is in, with just 4 members, with another member who is spending significant time in California with his sick wife, and with another, another person who is taking care of her mother, and sporadically meets, can sporadically get to the meeting and sometimes cannot. So those were really my considerations. The first 3 that I nominated were the first 3 that had applied. And again, a lot of variety, a lot of experience, a lot of difference in terms of age, and given the council's requirements that we have diversity, not only in terms of gender, which is a state requirement, of course, John, but also in terms of background and, what they bring to this position, as I explained to Councilwoman Schroeder. I think it's, I think it's too bad that Susan's not going to be approved.
Mayor, this is Gwen Schroeder. Have you spoken with the other applicant yet? Did you say you had not?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I, for one, would really like to encourage you to visit with her, and I think you indicated you would. There's a lot of echo, so forgive me if I'm repeating. I think she's highly qualified. If you decide to recommend her, I would tell you right now that I would most likely approve that. I think she's very qualified and would bring a lot to the table. But of course, it's up to you to make the recommendation.
Thanks, Gwen.
Mayor, this is Heather Hewlin. I have a question for you as well. My question is regarding the comparison. You brought forward the 3rd applicant that came in. Can you tell me how you selected the 3rd over the 4th one? Because I also would echo what John said, that this is not a gender issue, and also would agree with Gwen in the fact that I would pass that 4th application. When you look at the resume clearly makes that candidate a standout candidate for me and what I am looking for. So can you tell me how you selected the 3rd nomination over that 4th one?
Ms. Hewlin, I believe I stated that the first application I received in terms of timeline was Susan Glick. I think that will be supported by the information that Jackie circulated to council, and so you have that information in front of you. It's always been my practice that we'll take them in order as long as they meet the diversity requirements that I'm looking for in that regard. I appreciate what you said, Gwen, in terms of that. Again, to that point, this is my appointment. I know it has to be confirmed by all of you, and certainly we've seen that play out or not play out recently. But again, this is my appointment. I hang my hat on what IMU Utility has done. They've done a tremendous amount of work for the city of Indianola. They've done a tremendous job over the last several years. I believe that I know the personalities on that board. And again, they were not problematic previously. And so one of the things that I look at are persons that I know that will be able to mesh well and operate well with that board. And so again, just to that point, I wanted to let you know my thinking on it. And again, Susan put her vote up there. I will not, however, let council dictate to me who I will appoint. And again, I mean, if you guys want to play the song and dance, you're welcome to. But I won't put somebody there just for the sake of putting somebody there. I want to make sure that they have various requirements that I'm looking for in terms of the makeup of that board, in terms of that what they would bring to that board. So certainly I will take a look at the other applicant. I'll even reach out to her because I promised Mr. Rosca that I would do that. So, I'll do that. And again, if this vote here in a minute goes the other direction, then I'll do that. But certainly I'll promise you that I'll look at other applicants as well.
Mayor Shaw, this is Gwen again. I want to just clarify. I certainly wouldn't intend to make it sound as though I was trying to dictate or be confrontational about it. I do think you'll be very impressed with her when you meet with her, but I do understand that it is your appointment, and I certainly respect the order of that.
So what
Bob Flynn here. Hello, Bob Flynn here. Yes. I would, I'm a little concerned because, when this name come up, you refused to bring it forward at the last meeting. And, then we had the other candidates come up, and I think you need to look at that other candidate. I'm a little upset that you refused to bring this name up previously.
Well, Bob, it's frustrating as the chief executive of this city. It's frustrating to have people apply and have them be unanimously turned down without, from what I can tell, any conversation. There's no conversation amongst council. I've not gotten feedback from anyone. I mean, hats off to Ms. Schroeder for asking me what I'm looking for in that Thursday morning meeting, and I told her what I was looking for in terms of that. And Gwen, while I'm speaking, I said it the right way. I said, you were kind enough to say that it is my appointment. So I did not say that you were requiring.
No, I know. I just wanted to clarify.
I just wanted to clarify as well.
Well-
So that's why, Bob. I mean, I would just soon have that board at 4 people, and this is exactly what I communicated to both the chair and the vice chair at IMU. Then to have persons who apply, and again, these are volunteer positions. These are people who have put their names in writing. These are people who have followed the procedure that was written out by council. And these are people who are willing to serve the city of Indianola. And as a result, it's a little bit embarrassing for me to nominate people when council votes unanimously against them, and they don't tell me why they're voting against them, to be quite honest with you. And let me finish here for just a second, and you can have the floor back, Bob. But, again, I had told both the chair and the co-chair of IMU that I was not going to make another appointment. And they'll verify that story. If you don't trust me, they'll verify that story. But, so I'm basically doing it as a favor for Mr. Rabka. At the same time, after Councilwoman Spark was voted down, Susan Glick had applied, and I know that Susan, I know her tangentially in terms of some of the work she's done in the community. I know that she's been a very good member of Rotary. She does a lot of community service, and of course, Mr. Parker served on the school board with her for a long time. So she certainly understands policy. She understands the city. She brings to this board the same things that I mentioned in terms of to Ms. Schroeder a couple weeks ago in that regard. And so when she applied, sure, I contacted her back and said, yeah, we'll go ahead and put you up. But of course, one meeting had lapsed in that period of time because of the fact that, I hate to run people who are volunteering, who have the ability to help the city of Indianola. I hate to run their names up a flagpole and have them shot down unanimously. And I don't know why it is, because you guys won't tell me. I'll yield the floor.
All right.
I'm fully aware of the procedure. Thank you.
Okay.
Brett Southall here.
All right.
Mayor Shaw. I address the idea behind the process for applying, which was to create a pool of people, and from that pool, be able to select the most qualified before bringing someone forward for a nomination to a board or commission, and thereby save some of that running people up the flagpole only to be denied. So I do understand your concern, but I would like to reiterate the reason we were trying to change the process for applying was to kind of get rid of that in the first place. And to that point, and I've said this about the previous appointments that I have voted no on, I am not about to discuss a person's qualifications in an open meeting. That's even worse than the no vote, in my view. And I am not willing to do that, especially if it's someone who serves our community or volunteers or is a parent of a student or works at the grocery store, and I see them all the time. I'm not willing to do that. So I don't know how the others feel about why They haven't told you why, but I personally am not going to do that in a public meeting.
Well, and John Parker here. Mayor, I've had many conversations with Mike Rozga, and I know he told you before you brought the first applicant forward that you should communicate with the council about who you were bringing forward. So the communication goes both ways. Again, we don't receive any communication either way. And then finally, I received a conversation from Mike Rozga the other day that he would rather have seen the other candidate come forward. So and he's been talking with me on a regular basis. So I do question some of your comments there because, like I said, I do know that he was talking to you about that because he told me that, and he wanted you to look at the other candidate as well. I get it's your nomination. You can bring him forward, but it's council's job to approve that. So there is some checks and balances here, and that's really how the political system works. So.
Well, thanks, John.
Bob Swing here, Mayor. I also talked to Mike. I've also talked to Mike Rozga, and my understanding is that he was in hopes that he would also communicate with not only that board, but with the council when you're going to bring them forward.
Yeah, I understand that. Like I said, in terms of timeline, Susan's application had come in previously, and again, that had been how I had done the process. To Ms. Southall's point, Ms. Southall has asked that, again, Greta, because you're my kid's teacher, I keep calling that, but to Councilwoman Southall's point, this is a procedure, and again, we've not had multiple applicants at any one time. And in fact, since I've been mayor, the only time that we've had more than one applicant was after Susan Glick had put in her application. And so, John, I take offense a little bit in terms of that because I communicated that to Mr. Rozga, and perhaps the three of us should sit down and get our stories straight. And again, I don't want to bring Mr. Rozga into this conversation, but I was very clear to Mike and very clear to the assistant chair, to Mr. Voice as well, that given the fact that Susan Glick had applied, that I was going to put her up because she had applied previously to the other candidate. Now again, I'll talk to the other candidate, but and I'm happy to do that. But it is concerning, and John, I get politics, right? I've got 3 degrees in politics, so I certainly understand politics. And as Mr. Kling oftentimes says, it doesn't take a PhD in political science to understand this, or maybe it's just PhD. But at the same time, I voiced my encouragement to people to get engaged. I've had one person at a time apply for this position. And so Ms. Southall, while it would be great to be able to take from a whole barrel of applicants, I think there's a chilling effect, and that people are looking at this process and they're going, why would I throw myself out into that process? And you guys are the governing board of this city, so it's up to you to make those decisions ultimately. And so, I can respect that process certainly. But it is frustrating, particularly when I've been as transparent as possible in terms of telling you how this process played out, being as transparent as possible to the gentleman on the IMU board. And let's be real honest, Bob, if I were to reach out to you guys in terms of a policy discussion, I won't get anything back from you.
Point of order. Point of order. Yeah, do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Call the question.
I don't know, did you have the authority to call the question? Doug, are you there?
I'm here, Mayor.
Okay. Weigh in on us. I think we're having a discussion, and it seems as if they want to end that discussion.
Well, let me look. I think the chair, hold on. would actually have to make a motion to call the question, which would need to be approved by a majority of the board, of the council.
I move to call the question.
Second.
Discussion. Again, this is my point, is that anytime I wanna have a policy discussion with you guys, you shut down, so.
I think we were having a policy discussion. We were. We've hammered it over and over again. You've said the same things. We've said the same things. The policy discussion is over. I mean, there is no communication. You do not communicate with us. You know, you've never reached out. And this would be something that if I was sitting in your position and as board president when I was on the school board, you reach out to your constituents, but your colleagues, and you work with them. You reach out, and you've never once made that attempt to do that. So, right, we had a policy discussion, and I think we're pretty much we've hit a brick wall again as usual. You have your side, we have our side evidently, and that's where we're at.
And this is Councilwoman Schroeder, if I could just say, and I don't know if this is appropriate at this point, but I would welcome discussion with you, Mayor. You haven't contacted me, I haven't contacted you. For whatever reason, I would always look forward to visiting about these things. But I would echo Greta's concerns about discussing an individual's qualifications in an open meeting or really with anybody. I have my own reasons, and I would feel uncomfortable, other than perhaps with you, maybe privately, but I would not be comfortable discussing those things with others.
Because we have a motion to call the question, we need to have a vote on it without further discussion.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Glenn?
I know, I'm here.
what's your vote?
I'm thinking.
It's to call the question.
It's just a question, Glenn, it's not on the candidate.
I know.
Doug, can you explain for
I
everybody?
get it.
Can you explain, Doug Fulton, what call the question means?
Let's actually call the previous question. It means that the council makes a determination to end debate on that particular item. It takes a 2/3 vote of the council to do so, and it ends debate immediately.
Right, I understand what call the question is, thank you. Nay.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Now we go to the vote, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a first and a second, go ahead, do the vote.
Kling,
Now we're voting on.
Aye.
Bob,
Yeah.
now we're voting on the
The
Nomination.
nomination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, excuse me, I understand we're voting, and that's my name. Was I called to vote? I
Yes.
didn't hear.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you're called.
Oh, no.
Schroeder,
Nay.
Southall,
Nay.
Marchant,
Nay.
Hewlin,
Nay.
Parker.
No.
Thanks, council. Item 8 is public consideration with the new business for us the fiscal year 21 budget. At this time, I would open this meeting, this public hearing for the fiscal year 21 budget. I understand. Andy, you're in the room. Thanks, sir.
Yes.
Well, Andy's getting his computer fired up and the projector on. Everybody has been provided with a copy of the presentation that has been shared with members of the local media as well. It will be certainly included on our website as with all the other presentations. So.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to give
presentation on the FY21 budget. This is the budget hearing prior to the consideration of the council for the FY21 budget, a culmination of the many meetings that we've had over the past few months. These are the items that we'll be covering tonight. The first one being, since the last time we met, there have been a few changes to the budget, none too substantial. We did get the final numbers from IMU for their budget. As we anticipated, they're not anticipating a large increase in the revenue that they'll be taking in, so there's not much change in the pilot payments that they will be transferring to the city. And because they'll be taking over accounts payable, we did look for a little bit of savings in the clerk finance department, so we did cut some of the spending out of the clerk finance department. And also, I just wanted to mention for the COVID-19 situation that we find ourselves in, we are looking at some expenses. Fortunately, currently our expenses haven't been too great, but we are trying to track that. We set up a pay code in case we need to get reimbursement for sick leave, in case we have to use that for that purpose. And then we also are looking at tracking other expenses in case we come up in any other needs later on. So we are taking account of that. But that's the reason that the city has the fund balance. That's why the council set the policy that staff presented a few years ago to set those fund balances, and that's why we have them, so that we can deal with situations like this. The impact of the rollback. This slide, I understand, has a lot of numbers. I mainly want to talk about the changes between the full and taxable valuations for different classes of the city, classes of property, and the changes from the current year to the next year. And this next slide will graphically show those numbers. While we've had about a 68.6 million increase in our full valuation for the city, the taxable valuation only increased slightly over 23 million. And so what that means that we have about 45.5 million in property valuation loss due to the rollbacks. When we proposed and the council directed that our levy would be increased to 13.63, we also presented this slide, which shows due to the rollbacks in the single family residential, if the value of your home stays the same, there would be no little difference in the property taxes for the city between this year and next year. There would be a small increase for commercial industrial, and then for the multifamily, because the rollback was going from 75% to 71.25, they would see the largest decrease in property taxes despite the increase in the property tax levy. Our next subject is the impact of the property tax reform bill. The reason I'm bringing this up is last year, as you recall, they created that, several years ago, they created the extra class of property, the multifamily residential. And then last year, well, let me step back. So back in the 1980s, with the rollback for the single family residential, they had set the limit on the assessment value limit for all classes, mainly the residential, at 4%. And then they coupled that with agriculture. That's why we have the residential rollback that we have now at 56%. They set that limitation at 4%, so no property can grow at 4%, greater than 4% each year. And so the residential property last year, they changed that to 3%. What that has done is, in future projections for residential property, for single family residential property, instead of going up to 60%, it now is projected to stay around 55–56%. So what this means is that when they were lowering the multifamily residential several years ago, they were anticipating the single family residential to go up to 60% with the 4% limitation. Now with the 3% limitation, it's going to hover around 55–56%. And what we're anticipating is that multifamily is not going to go just down to 60%, but it's going to go down to 55–56%. So what that's going to have some impact on our future projections for property tax revenue. So we'll have to also keep an eye on that. The FY21 budget in summary, these numbers also include IMU.
This is the summary page from the FY21 budget pages. The three that I have highlighted in this presentation are the three main increases. The public safety is for the 2 police officers. The culture and rec is for the additional library staff. And then the capital projects increases is for the 2 new vehicles and equipment for the police department. And then also the engineering and some of this construction that we're starting with the square streetscape. We're also starting a little bit of the engineering for the K Street and Hillcrest infrastructure projects. This is the fund balance sheet, and you'll notice that we do decrease in general fund, but we do maintain that 25% fund balance for the general fund. Special revenue, the main decrease there is the transfer from the local option sales tax for the wastewater treatment plant. And then the TIF is increasing because as we collect the TIF revenue to pay off the wellness center bonds into the future years over the next decade. And so the FY21 budget goals, we have the additional police officers along with the vehicles and equipment. We have the additional library staff. We are meeting the assumptions that were presented to us by our consultants for the liability insurance and also for our health insurance. And then we also looking at starting at least the engineering for K Street and Hillcrest. And then also the engineering is a little bit of the construction, and that's mainly based on working with the county as they move forward with their county courthouse project, working with them on the streetscape around the square. Any questions on any of that presentation?
Good job, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job. Good budget.
And thanks
Thank
to
you.
staff for all their hard work on
Thank you.
budget.
Andy, I got some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
What was did I see where our growth was last year? Was it 8%?
Yeah, I think the full valuation was around, might have been around 8%, and then our taxable valuation increase was quite smaller than that. Actually, our full valuation, I think, now that I recall, was about 6.9% for full valuation, and our taxable was around 4%.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I couldn't make too much out of your presentation. Do you have access to another presentation that you gave last time?
I have it on the computer. I don't have it with me right now. I don't
Okay.
have it pulled up right now.
Okay. There was one slide in the last presentation that I was curious about, and see if I can find it here. Give me just a second here. Oh, got on a different computer. Let me. Okay. So Andy, on your last presentation that was, last one that you've done, our last meeting, it must have been first part of March, you have the capital project funds overview. Does that ring a bell to you?
For capital projects?
Yeah, FY21 capital project.
Yes, sir.
Some of the things, and I don't know if you have it in front of you or not, but I was having a hard time understanding the beginning revenue expenditures and the ending amount, particularly in terms of the streetscape. I know the streetscape is something that council, I want to see done. So I'm just curious if there is no beginning balance in it, then the revenue was $4.4 million, and the expenditures instead was $2 million, and then there was no ending balance, it was just a dash.
And that's for the streetscape, or it's included
Yeah,
with
well,
other?
yeah, that whole slide, Andy, on the streetscape, fiscal year 21 capital projects funds overview.
I don't think I quite understand what you're.
Okay. Do you have the presentation you gave last council meeting?
I have it on my computer, I don't have it pulled up.
Okay. Are you able to pull it up or no?
I might be able to at some point.
Okay. I'll just send you an email to it. But the question I have is those numbers across in that capital project. Maybe just make a note of it and we can have a conversation. But the capital project fund overview, the numbers don't add up. Not only in terms of the streetscape, where you have nothing at the beginning, you have a revenue of 4.4 million, and then you have expenditures of 2 million, and again, in my math, there should be a ending of $2.4 million in there, but there's just a dash there. And likewise, in terms of the street capital projects, and the total numbers across the bottom don't add up either. So maybe I'll just shoot you an email about that. That didn't quite make sense to me.
I can take a look at it and answer any questions.
Okay.
Well, and if I can just add that if you're looking at a presentation, the most important document to look at is going to be the document that's in your packet that starts on page it starts on page 132. That is the state form that is used. So Mayor, if you're referencing a table, that's where that information would be. And now that we had incorporated all the direction, as everybody knows, as part of the budget process, every step along the way, we're getting more and more information from council and more direction, which then allows us to input the data into the necessary form. So Mayor, if you have a question, the attachment in the packet that starts on page 132, if you scroll through and find that table, we can go from there, because that would have the capital line in there.
Yeah, I think what Ryan's referring to, and what I can bring up here is the fund balance worksheet there, where the square streetscape is included with the capital projects, and so we are maintaining the fund balance in the capital projects.
Andy, what slide is that?
It is slide 13.
So for those that are viewing at home that have the presentation pulled up in front of you.
Yeah, I guess I don't.
And this would be, I believe this is going to be on page 135 of your packet.
And I can hold back and pull up Ryan. I appreciate the citation. Ryan, you said 135.
It's page 135. It will have three major rows. Row 1 is annual report FYI 2019. Then row 2, which has got a series of lines going across. And then row 3, budget FY 2021.
Right, okay. Well, let me make heads or tails of that and try to reconcile it with what was presented then a couple weeks ago, because it wasn't making heads or tails to me in terms of that slide. So I'll send you an email and ask for that regard. Another question that I would have for council is that I know that the deadline for this budget has been kicked back to April 30th in order to have it submitted, given the COVID-19 outbreak. I just wondered if there's any consideration, given the reduction that we've had in the economy in the last couple of months, and foregoing if there's any consideration of holding the tax rate steady. Assessments are going up. We're fortunate this year that the assessments are not going to change because they're a 2-year cycle, but certainly they will go up, and we've seen that. We've seen them go up in that regard. If we have 8% growth as it is, I'm guessing that growth in terms of the economy is going to be negative, and I'm just aware of the horrific impacts that the COVID-19 is having on persons, not only at a micro level, but also at the macro level. And I think we've got to recall that businesses are paying property taxes as well. And I know I was speaking to some business owners there, and apologies for what's coming your way, but I would encourage the council to take a look at the budget, and of course we're increasing it, and Andy, you've done a nice job of talking about the rollback of the money that we've lost there. But I think, it's really time to tighten one's belts. And I've said this before, and, we had a nice discussion at the Opera a couple weeks ago in terms of where the budget's going. But at the same time, I think, our world has changed so substantially, not only in terms of public health, but also has changed quite substantially in terms of economics. And so I would encourage council to take a look at that rate and look at assessments and look at the economic impact, the negative job growth, the negative economic growth and unemployment, and take that into consideration a little bit during this public hearing.
The public hearing's still open, right?
That it is.
Anybody else speaking in public hearing?
We didn't receive any other comments.
Okay.
Jackie, do you?
Nope, I just refreshed. No, there's no other comments.
Very good. Well, what Thomas said, I'll close this public hearing and go on to the resolution approving the proposed fiscal year 21 budget.
Bob Kling, move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to add that what we're doing with the budget is public safety and library, and we've made a commitment to do that. We actually made a majority of council last year entered into a public safety commitment, and I think this is an extension of what we were doing last year. I too recognize the fact that there's economic woes. My hope would be that when this tax rate actually hits the people that are paying it, we'll be into a different cycle. And if we're not into a different cycle, we have an opportunity to review our tax rate when we go into the 2021-2022 year. So I'm very comfortable with the work that's been done on this budget. I think they being the staff, all the department heads, Andy, Ryan, have done a fantastic job putting this together, and I fully support moving forward with it.
Anyone else?
John Parker, I'll speak up. As a business owner, I truly understand what you were saying. I'm watching it every day, obviously, trying to determine whether, lack of phone calls or orders that we're getting, at one point, do I look at slow down, do I need to lay staff off, or do we keep going? So I get it. I'm dealing with it on a daily basis. But I'm also looking and paying attention and reading and staying on top of it that I think we're a long ways away from knowing, the total impact of what's going on. I think the next 15 to 20 to 30 days will tell us a lot. I concur with Greg. I think that this budget is a good budget. I think, we're hearing what the public is telling us. You know, we know the library was deficient in areas, and we're working on that. You know, and public safety has been, you know, that's I probably hear more about that than anything. You know, and I think fulfilling those commitments is a good first step. So I would also say that Greg is right. You know, we got, you know, we'll have more information to know if next year we have to make adjustments. We make adjustments, but I think at this time this is a good budget. So.
Bob Kling here. I just want to add, we've had several presentations, and it really shows that we are giving the public what they actually want, and that's why I think we need to move forward.
Can I go? Councilwoman Heather Hewlin. I also want to say, Mayor, in response to your question, I recognize and understand the concerns. You know, we all are understanding of that, I think. But for me, I believe that it's important for us to commit to the plan. And if we need to make a necessary change later, we do that. But this has been a plan in the going and a well thought out plan. So I'm fine with moving forward.
Yeah, I wasn't insinuating that it wasn't well thought out. I was just insinuating that things have changed quite dramatically economically for a number of people, and that was my point. I think it's, you know, I think we need to keep an eye on what's going to happen in this country. I mean, if you read projections, they're projecting negative 15% growth, at least in the first 3 quarters, which would put us into, you know, late fall. But I get it.
If I can, just a couple things. Andy and Mike Maloney, our financial advisor, have already started working on and looking at the potential impact as a result of COVID. The areas that we would most likely get hit would be the local option sales tax and other programs such as pool passes, Parks and Rec type programs. So those are elastic in terms of if like with the programs, and I know Doug Byland's watching, but if there's not a lot of program interest, that expense gets removed as well as that revenue. It's likely that revenue projections for hotel motel tax would be impacted. Again, Andy and Michael Maloney are looking at that. Just really quick, I know there's often a lot of confusion about the rate itself because of the growth that has already occurred in the city. The rate is to say that the rate is going up. Yes, the number is going up, but remember that number is being spread out over a larger valuation group. So any sort of downturn in growth would affect future growth and would likely be a point of consideration for the city council for the preparation of the next budget. But certainly we're going to be continuing to monitor this. We've already started looking at those numbers and trying to make projections. Andy mentioned earlier today he's going to be on a GFOA call, or there's some sort of resource that GFOA is providing for municipalities to look at what that impact will be. And certainly as we go along, we will share that with everybody. But just Andy included this on his slide presentation. Because the property taxes are paid in arrears, so the growth, the rate itself is based off of a higher tax valuation. So while the rate is going up, yes, the net impact to most of the taxpayers is actually going to go down because it's spread over a larger valuation.
Yeah, just to build onto that, the values that we use are about 18 months old. It's always a year and a half behind. So if we do, I mean, the budget was based on the continuation of the council's plan for the additional police staffing for the police that was found in the staffing study. We also have 3 more additional firefighters and paramedics that are included in that staffing plan. That was approved by a former council, and that can always be adjusted next year if we find that there is a downturn in the values and outlook.
Thank you, Andy.
Right, but Andy, personnel is first, and Ryan, thanks for the explanation. I understand how it's spread out in that regard. But, you know, personnel is something that we don't reduce. And again, we frequently, I mean, I've just heard an explanation in terms of what's it doing to the city. And, you know, as elected representatives, I get that Mr. Waller and Mr. Lent have to investigate what's best for the city. And I get, you know, what Mr. Parker said in terms of being a business owner. My main concern is the businesses, you guys. I mean, again, as I talked about, and various individuals, you know, it's hard telling exactly where it's going. And again, I just wanted to bring it up in terms of direction. That would just be my suggestion. But
And I don't disagree with you, but I think making a decision, I mean, we don't even know what it's gonna do to the economy at this point yet. I mean, there's so many unknowns. Again, as I said, the next 15 to 30 days, 45 days, I mean, we're making a decision now, something that's gonna affect the, you know, the next fiscal year, whereas, you know, I mean, there could be a lot of crazy things happen, or there may be nothing happen. I mean, this may be a blip on the radar. We don't know. I mean, there's just so many unknowns, and I think it would be short-sighted of us to throw this all up in the air and walk away from it, just based on possible projections that we don't know where they're going. So.
yeah, good point. You know, we've had this conversation ever since I've been mayor about economic development and why we engage in economic development, you know, and now that we have 8% growth, it seems like most of that growth is going back into the city, and it's not going to benefit the taxpayers in that regard. So, again, I know I'm probably barking up the wrong pole here, but again, I just think that it's time to be pretty prudent in terms of spending taxpayers' dollars, especially given what's coming up. But I said my piece on that, so I'll.
This is Councilwoman Hewlin. Do you not feel that that is what the taxpayers are asking for, though, is more public safety? Because I, as a taxpayer, I like the idea of having more public safety. I think it's an important piece.
Yeah, frankly, Ms. Hewlin, the people I've talked to are quite concerned about the economy at this point. You know, I've been out, I've gone around the square, I've gone around the community, I've talked to a lot of different people. Frankly, you know, I would like to get the name of 5 people in this town who say, yes, we need to do these various things. You know, I've had a nice communication from one of the board members of the library, and they're excited. And certainly I acknowledge the fact that, you know, the library has been underspent on, and certainly we've done our due diligence in terms of looking at our various needs. And I'm not saying the needs aren't there. I'm just saying the timing, given how the world has changed, the timing is not very good.
But I don't know. We don't even know how the world's changed. I mean, you're making long-range assumptions on things we don't even know about yet.
Right, but I mean, you know, we always budget conservatively, John. So,
Trust me,
you know, this is a pretty optimistic budget given the projections for, you know, 15 to 20% negative growth and 30% unemployment. Granted,
but we don't know that yet.
You know, sorry.
But we don't know that yet. You're making assumptions on things we don't know yet.
Well, it's true. That's absolutely, that's a good point. But at the same time, you guys are making assumptions based upon what has been in the past and everything I'm reading in terms of you know, both micro and macroeconomics is that we're a long ways from pulling out of this. I hope you're right, but you know, I see my retirement and I go, holy cow, that's no good.
Right. I think the market jumped up today though too. So your retirement should kick back a little bit.
Well, I wish I gained back everything I lost the last 6 weeks, but unfortunately, yes.
I agree.
This is Councilwoman Schroeder. I would like to just weigh in. I think you both make valid points, but I really have felt for a long time that if Indianola doesn't step up our game, we're going to fall farther behind than what some of us think we are now. So I know that it's a risk. I think there are a lot of forecasts to both sides of our discussion. I think we have to try to do the best we can for our community and help it remain competitive and moving forward. And so I guess that's what I have to add to this discussion.
Bob Thing here. I guess, we've had presentation after presentation that has shown, and it's added up and shown from the surveys and everything else we've done that we are giving the people what they want. And I think we need to plan on that. Plans may change, but we're not gonna throw out everything right now because of some unknown factors. I think we need to plan exactly the way we're going, the direction we're going, and give the people what they're telling me what they want.
Thanks, Bob.
I'll just add one more thing from the staff perspective. This is just for information and context. One, the staffing study that was done for public safety showed that we were understaffed in both police and fire. We know and we've communicated on a regular basis. Chief Chia mentioned just last week that the number of call volumes that his team has gone out on has increased over what it was last year at the same time. We're seeing the same trend in police department. So we were understaffed based on regional and national levels, and that's what those studies showed. So that's one thing. So this is just to bring us up to a level where we're meeting the norms and we're trying to deal with the influx of calls that we are having. The budget would go into effect July 1. One of the things that we will do and we've done and we will continue to do is to monitor the situation, and as we do with the rest of the environment, monitor it. The budget goes into effect July 1. Just because it's authorized does not mean it needs to be fully executed at that effective July 1. So we will continue to have conversations with the council as we learn more and more, and I'm sure there'll be tough decisions in the future if the economy continues down a path that the mayor had suggested, and we certainly hope for a more positive uptick. But we're monitoring the situation. We're going to continue to do this. This is a spending plan that goes into effect July 1, and that's our spending authority. It doesn't mean that it's always going to come in and we would fulfill it just because it's there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Bob mentioned feedback we got from the community. One thing I wanted to bring up is that I've heard a couple different times is this discussion that the sample is statistically significant, and I'm going to geek out here just for a second, but as social scientists, the methodology is not statistically significant in the sense that we may have gotten a sense from the feedback in terms of the direction it's going, but at the same time, it was not a random sample. So it's really difficult to say that it's statistically significant. I know, for a matter of fact, that I got on there 3 times, and since I sit on the sustainability committee, I know they got on a number of different times as well, and filled it in too. And telling as a social scientist, it's real telling in the sense that that sample is not statistically significant because of the fact that 71% of the sample is women. And again, we've all been in the community enough to know that that is statistically out of whack there. So I just wanted to bring that up. Again, I've heard it a couple different times. Again, it's great information to have, but we want to be kind of careful in terms of drawing conclusions from a sample that was floated out to the community generally in that regard.
Is there another way to survey the community?
Absolutely. I mean, there's all sorts of methods to survey the community. I mean, you can do it with as small a sample as 30 people if you make sure that what you have is actually a representative sample of the population. I mean, there's lots of survey data that you can utilize to measure that. I did a survey the other day just for fun on Facebook that looked at, which would you rather have, a levy increase, a levy decrease, or flat. And again, more than 80% said, no, we don't want a tax increase. But granted, that's not a statistically significant survey. That's just fill this in, and most of the people are not going to give themselves an increase. Some did. Again, about 18% did. But I wouldn't run that by you guys and say, look, you know, when you approve this fiscal budget, you're voting against what the community wants. Because again, my sample was just anyone who happened to walk by and notice on Facebook that the mayor had put a sample out there. So I would pretend to say that it was statistically significant. I think it does show kind of where the community is in terms of their concern about the COVID. And again, the majority of this budget was, well, not majority, but entirely this budget was written up before the COVID-19 crisis came along. So that's just my point, is that moving forward, when we engage the public, if we're going to use the public for planning documents, which we're doing, we want to make sure that it is a sample of the community as opposed to, you know, persons who answer on their smartphones and then on their laptop and then on their desktop 2 or 3 times. Because, like I said, I know I went 3 times, and Margaret Burnham, the Sustainability Committee, encouraged her persons to participate several times as well. And so it's a skewed result. And again, really all we have to see is that 71% of the respondents are female, and see that result is skewed. Again, not saying it's not useful. I mean, it's as useful as my 66 people that, well, probably hopefully more useful than my 66 people. But at the same time, you know, we just want to be careful with the methodology.
Okay.
So I think we do have a first and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Jackie, go ahead and take the vote, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Thanks, Council. We'll move on to item 2 under old business, which is sign exemption requests. I know Mr. Parker is there to address those in public hearing if there's anything. So at this time, item A, I'd like to open this public hearing for a sign exemption request from Parker Signs and Graphics Inc. on behalf of the Sunfield Mobile Home Park located at 800 East Iowa Avenue.
Southall, move to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, wait.
It's a public
Sorry,
hearing.
we're still we're in an open meeting right now.
Here.
We're in a
Go
public
again,
hearing.
Phil.
I can't see the podium. Is there anyone there?
There's no one there, and I have not received any comments via email.
Thanks, Jackie. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Move on to item B, which is resolution accepting the sign exemption request from Parker Signs and Graphics Inc. on behalf of the Sunfield Mobile Home Park located at 800 East Iowa Avenue.
Southall still moves to approve.
Hewlin still seconds.
Sorry, I just lost all audio for a second.
We've got a first and a second.
Right. Jackie, go ahead and take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Kling,
Bob?
Oh, aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall.
Aye.
And just for the record, Councilman Parker is sitting in the audience. He's recused himself.
Thanks, Council. Another public hearing for a sign exemption request for Parker Signs and Graphics on behalf of Fellows and Blake located at 700 East 2nd Avenue. At this time, I'd like to open this public hearing.
Mayor, there's no one at the podium, and I have not received any other comments.
Thank you, Jackie. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing at this time and move on to item B, which is resolution accepting the sign exemption request from Parker Signs and Graphics Inc. on behalf of Fellows and Blake located at 700 East 2nd Avenue.
Move to approve. Kling.
Second.
Discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
And for the record, Councilman Parker is sitting in the audience. He recused himself.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, under old business is the Iowa Avenue paving project on page 163 of your packet. First item is public hearing for the purpose of hearing property owners subject to assessment and interested parties for or against the improvement, its cost, the assessment, or the boundaries of the district of the East Iowa Avenue paving project. The session is now open.
Mayor Shaw, we received an email
Okay.
from Polly Glasscock at 1715 East Iowa on March 24th at 8:56 a.m. That was sent to council along with an email from Dave Mueller of Snyder and Associates addressing some of her concerns.
Okay. Would you be so kind to read that? I've seen it. I know it's short. So just read it into record, please.
Yes. Ms. Glasscock says, just to reiterate, I am not comfortable with having a 10-foot wide bike trail on my property. I do not feel that I should have to maintain 40% and be responsible for 40 to 50% of repairs and replacement per the Parks and Rec Department policy. I have 2 trees very close to where the proposed trail would be. They are 2 ash trees in that area that will need to be removed at some point. They are not a liability to me at this point, but will be if the trail is added. I am proposing that the city cut those 2 trees down at their expense. I have saved the pavement project money by closing off 1 driveway. Also, I feel I am entitled to compensation for the land that the proposed trail would take from my property. What will be done with my sump pump pipe that drains into the ditch? It will be nice to have pavement and water, but the trail issue is overwhelming. I would like to see the city finish some of the existing trails. Case in point, the city's property at 1202 East Iowa, east to 14th Street, the Alamo Group, or from Euclid Street, north on 15th to Iowa Avenue, Diligent Prairie Glen, which are both in the areas of the new pavement. Respectfully submitted, Polly Glasscock.
Very good. Thank you. And that's the only one that we had received. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do we want to include, Dave Mueller is here in the audience, by the way, for questions, and Charlie's on the phone for any questions council may have. I think we did provide the email from Dave Mueller to council. It does speak to Ms. Glasscock's comments. If we can read that, or Dave presents to get that on the record as well.
Yeah, that might be, I saw his email. That might be worthy. Dave, since you took the time to come in, do you want to go ahead and read that?
Sure, do you want my voice or Jackie's way better?
And let the record show that he is standing 6 feet away from everybody.
Yeah.
In answer to the specific questions, we did design the street paving project to avoid all the impacts to the trees. So it'll nestle in there, but being ash trees, it's probably prudent that they come down. We have already proposed enough temporary easement that we can do that without getting any additional property. So that works. We'd already planned on picking up her sump pump and tying it into the subdrain that's proposed with the project. So that was an easy and affirmative answer. The trail is placed 1 foot inside of the existing right-of-way. So there's a 66-foot right-of-way for Iowa Avenue, and it's a little unique in that it was a county road that was given that the city annexed into. And how the county government works is they don't typically buy property, they just have a use easement. So the city has that 33-foot slice of her property in permanent easement, and typically when the city, because of their police powers, owns underlying fee, the actual clear title to the ground instead of just getting permanent easement for permanent improvements. And that is also a requirement of the grant. The federal fund it requires the city to have clear title to the ground. So we're not actually buying more ground, we're just purchasing the underlying fee underneath the permanent easement. It's a little bit of a nuance there, but there is a difference there. So that's where the acquisition of that property comes from. It's actually already in permanent easement. We're just purchasing the underlying fee. think that was, answered all the questions that she had. If there were any other questions, I'd be happy to address.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
No, thanks very much for that, Dave. Appreciate that. Anything else? There is something that I need to read here in terms of this public hearing is for objections and endorsements to the adoption of the proposed resolutions of necessity for the construction of the East Iowa Avenue project in the city pursuant to notice of the time and place of hearing duly published in mail pursuant to prior action of the council. Both written and oral objections will be reviewed and considered by the council at that time. We are, of course, now currently in the public hearing. We've had the two, we've had Ms. Glasscock's letter written and entered into record. Any further discussion amongst council while this public hearing is still open? To close the public hearing, I do need a motion by council.
Move to approve the resolution of necessity for East Iowa Avenue project, paving
It's a
project.
motion to go out of closed
Mo-
hearing.
To go out of the public hearing.
Oh,
We have to for this.
Yeah.
one.
Oh, okay, motion to go out of the public hearing, I guess I didn't catch
Second.
that, sorry.
Yeah, no, we do need a motion of council.
Got it,
Second to close the public hearing. I can't close it. This is a little different.
gotcha, okay.
So, do you have the names, Jackie?
I do,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, very good. Jackie, please roll call.
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Now I need to ask you to adopt or amend and adopt the proposed resolution of necessity. The adoption of the resolution of necessity shall receive an affirmative vote for passage equal to 3/4 of the council. That would require 5 aye votes for it to be approved or 2 no votes for it to not be approved. Council must choose one of the following: defer action to a specified later date, place, adopt the resolution of necessity with amendments listed, or adopt the resolution of necessity without amendments. Those are your 3 options. Anybody want to make a motion for any of those 3 options?
I'm looking it up. Okay, back over here. And we're on page
Just
166.
to, if the council is looking to approve this as presented, you would make a motion for number 3. If there's any sort of amendments that you would like to direct us to incorporate.
Okay, that's what I
then-
didn't understand.
Yeah,
Okay, I was looking
if you
for
want
what
to-
possible
yeah,
amendments
there
were.
are, the amendments would come from the governing body, which
Right,
is the
oh,
council.
okay.
So,
Then, yeah, motion to number 3. Make a motion to adopt number 3.
adopt a resolution of necessity without amendments.
That's correct.
Second. I second. Kling.
Very good, thanks, gentlemen. Discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant.
Aye.
Good, council, thanks for jumping through those hoops. Item 4, on page 170 of your packet, is a resolution approving and authorizing a loan and disbursement agreement by and between the City of Unionville, Iowa and the Iowa Finance Authority, authorizing and providing for the issuance, securing of payment of $17,059,000 sewer revenue capital loan note, Series 2020 of the City of Unionville, Iowa, under the provisions of the Code of Iowa, providing for a method of payment of said notes.
Move to approve. Kling.
Second.
Southall second.
Or rather, give it to Brad.
Discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Thanks, Jackie. Moving on to item D, new business, discussion and direction of annexation request received from John F. and Mary H. Peterson. I understand there is a letter there as well. Jackie, do you want to read that into record?
Sure. We received an email from Jessica Sanford today, March 25th at 12:03 p.m. She says, as the council considers whether to pursue the annexation request received by John F. and Mary H. Peterson, we would ask documentation of funding be provided by the Petersons on any future development plans prior to the city moving forward with annexation. This would ensure, given the current economic climate and the potential for an economic downturn, the land in question does not become a partially completed construction zone for years to come. Unless the funding and the necessity for new housing are currently existent, it seems premature to consider annexing the land at present. Thank you for your consideration, Matt and Jessica Sanford.
Thank you, Jackie. I would move that staff and Mr. Waller are looking for direction here, council.
I think maybe what we're looking for is direction to give staff to pursue this. Is that correct?
Correct. So the process, the way this goes, if somebody's outside the corporate limits of the city, they have to petition to the council or make the request to the council. If council is willing to entertain this, then you give us that direction, and then we start the process and we work with planning and zoning. Planning and zoning would then do the analysis of it. If it comes in, what type of zoning is it gonna be? This is where they would refer to the comprehensive master plan for direction. In just a cursory review, this is located in what's identified as a priority area in the draft of the current the comp plan that's going through the final revisions now. I think it's pretty safe to say that aspect of the priority area that's not looking to be modified as P&Z is going through it. So planning and zoning would look at it, understand what the zoning would be if it was to come in, and then it would go to the IMU board to look at utility needs and those types of things, with then a recommendation back up to the city council. Charlie, did I explain that properly? If you need to correct anything, please jump in.
Just one addition too, by council policy, it is required to go to the board of trustees as well for their review.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think my viewpoint would be, let's give it to staff to pursue and find out the process, go through the process.
And by giving it to staff, we would work through with planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning, yep. That's
Yes, I agree. Yep.
So I just have one quick question. I do know there are a couple of businesses that are out there that would not be part of the property that would be annexed in. How does, if we did this moving forward, annex it in, how does that affect the current existing property that's not inside the city limits? I'm assuming it has no effect whatsoever.
Are you talking just the piece that we have the request on right now?
No, I'm talking about the pieces. I mean, I'm saying they're, now you're starting to surround around properties that, or not surround, but you're coming up and along properties that are current businesses, I'm assuming that don't fit within what future, I guess, direction. So if this comes in as residential and is built up, how does that affect having a business that's inside the county, but yet right up against I guess, I just want to make sure that we're not, I just want to make sure it doesn't have any effect on businesses around there that are already there.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, as far as this request goes, it wouldn't have any effect on them because they would still be located in the county.
Gotcha.
However, at what point these do get annexed in, if they do get annexed in the future, those existing uses would just become non-conforming uses, meaning they'd be grandfathered in. As are when they brought into the city, we would put the appropriate zoning classification on that based off what our comp plan calls for. At least that would be staff's recommendation of the council. Mm-hmm. And then from there, if it was a residential zoning district versus commercial business on it, again, that commercial business will be grandfathered in for the time being. And then hopefully, you know, as we move forward, with development in the future, you know, that tends to kind of take care of itself in a sense.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think moving forward, you know, just start the investigation process, you know.
Agreed.
Is there anybody that objects to this?
I agree.
Okay,
Further discussion?
Got direction.
Got direction?
we've got direction, thank you.
All right, item 2 is first consideration of ordinance amending chapter 99 sewer services charges, Indianola Code of Ordinances.
This has been discussed previously, and this reflects the direction we received as part of the discussions tied to the wastewater treatment plant. I'm sorry, the water resource recovery facility project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Item 3 is first consideration of ordinance to amend the recycling fees to account for the increase being implemented by Waste Management.
Move to approve.
Southall second.
Second, discussion.
Just for everybody's, there was an email that we sent out when we received notice from Waste Management. They, from an agreement that was approved by a previous city council for this, Ammon Taylor, who's the Waste Management Governmental Affairs rep for our area, indicated that China is restricting, or is being more restrictive with recycling, and they indicated and built into their agreements that as the recycling market tightens down, there might have to be increases that are reflective of the market. So this is in keeping with past practices of passing through that cost.
Very good, thank you. Further discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Thanks, council. We'll move into other business, city manager report, Mr. Waller.
Okay, the first item underneath the city manager's report, resolution authorizing temporary suspension of various administrative and penalty charges for the city provided utilities. There was an email that was provided to city council, I think last week. This was the addition to the agenda. This is IMU passed a similar resolution on Monday, so this just mirrors what they are doing since they do bill for our wastewater treatment. This would temporarily suspend any sort of late fees or penalties on the sewer utility.
How long, I mean, I guess.
60 days.
60
sorry.
days, okay, thank you.
Yeah. The intent is to mirror, obviously there's a couple days, but the intent is to be coterminous with IMU's.
Okay, so you need a motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I move to approve the,
You move to adopt a resolution.
move to adopt the resolution to hold all administrative fees for a term of 60 days.
I'll second.
Any discussion? You want to wait for Marcia to get back, or do you just want to have some?
I'd say just continue on.
That might be the Frank Drummond moment.
Jackie, go ahead and take the roll call, please.
Okay. Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Anything else there, Ryan?
I do. I've got a couple of quick things. First of all, we received a request from Cabin Coffee. They are temporarily putting their construction of the coffee facility in Ward 4, heading east towards the, on the old D&D lot, heading east towards the schools. They're wishing to temporarily suspend construction due to the current situation with COVID and the regulations associated with that. They wanted us to bring this up to council. They are concerned about just their, as you know, development agreements, we have timelines in there. So they had asked for some leniency with that. So we're just looking for a little bit of direction with that. If we need to formalize it later on, we can as part of an amended development agreement.
I was gonna say, did they give us any indication of a timeline that they were asking for, or?
Charlie, do you?
Yeah, nothing as of now. I think they're just kind of waiting it out to see how this all shakes out.
Okay,
Well, anything we can do to work with them, I think, is important.
yeah, I would agree. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Any objections to that?
No.
Okay. Along the same lines, I spoke with Alicia Barkus yesterday. She's the CEO of the YMCA. Given that all fitness clubs are closed, she's requesting some leeway with when their next rent payment will come due, if they can have some, not be held to the firm deadline of, I think it's the March payment. So they're asking for some leniency given the current environment and the fact that fitness clubs are all shut down.
To be clear, she's not asking to not pay.
Correct, she just said
delay the
delay,
payment.
right,
Okay,
right.
I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
You-
I'm recusing.
She didn't put a time frame on, she just said, we're trying to figure out how long this is gonna last. She said, I think the governor's proclamation is done April 12th or April 13th, so she said she'd like to revisit it then, but at that point, like all other renters.
Sorry, you kind of broke up there. I can see you talking, but I can't hear you talking. But, so the answer I got was, play it by ear, kind of, in terms of.
Correct, correct. She was not asking for any, she was not asking to not pay it, she was just asking if they can have some extra time to pay it, given that the declaration requires all fitness clubs to be closed.
Thanks for the clarification. I think Mr. Waller's looking for direction.
Yeah,
I say we provide leeway.
Yep, yep.
Good.
we got at least 4. Chief.
Yeah, Heather
I'm
already
recused.
told us she's out. Okay, thank you. Census update. To date, our community stepped up in a major way. Indianola's participation rate is 34.4%. The state's is 32.3, and the US is 26.2. So kudos to the community. There's that. And then I'm pleased to report that we've extended an offer and he's accepted for a public works director. He goes by AP. His name is AP. He's been a public works director for 10 years in Oskaloosa. He is a licensed engineer in the state of Iowa, so that will bring a tremendous, that'll be a tremendous resource for us. He got glowing reviews from everybody that was involved in the interview panel, which went from department heads to IMU department heads to the staff. Also from around the region, so we're really excited. His first day will be April 13th. So
Great.
happy about that, and obviously we want to thank Bart. Bart has done a great job of stepping in, and we're excited that he'll be able to enjoy his retirement. So that's all I have. The only other thing that I have is just to file and receive the correspondence from February 28th and March 6th.
Move to approve to receive and file the correspondence.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mayor, if I can, one more thing before the, enter into closed session. Mayor, before the meeting started, you and I were chatting about, the presentation for the study session. Given that we have Susan Glick's walking out and we still got Dave Muller here, just heading in, is there a desire for us to continue on with that presentation? Or is it appropriate, or does the council feel comfortable with providing some direction on those the 3 points that were provided in the memo that we're looking for direction on based on public comment that we have received from developers, builders, contractors, community members? The presentation that would be provided is very similar to the one that staff provided at the January breakfast to developers and builders. And this is just for updating our code from the 2012 version to the 2018, and we're just looking for direction on 3 points, all of which can coincide with the staff's recommendation, aligns with the public comments that we received and were included in your email.
I'd be comfortable not going through the presentation and giving directions off of what we've been given.
Yes.
I would too, yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
We've all seen the presentation.
Yes.
And this is just direction so we could prepare the documents. The city council would still be required to have more hearings on this matter. So this is just simply direction for us to prepare. We can really quickly, Charlie, can you just kind of summarize the 3 points that we're looking for direction on?
Yeah, not a problem at all. The first one deals with fire sprinkler requirements. As we've discussed in the past, the Central Iowa Code Consortium, we've relied heavily on their recommendations through this process. One of the recommendations they're making essentially would have the square footage requirement for sprinkler systems. So, for example, if the current square footage requirement would be 5,000 square feet for a certain business, they're having that down to 2,500. We've talked with other communities in the metro area to kind of see what they're doing. Most communities have not adopted yet. They're kind of in the same boat that we are right now. But the indication is that some will not adopt and some will. But from a staff standpoint, we do fear from an economic development standpoint that this could hinder us in the future if we adopt this recommendation. So our recommendation is to not adopt this code consortium's recommendation, but adopt the code as currently written without the amendment. The other one has to deal with the underfloor fire protection for residential structures. The code consortium does have an amendment in there that makes it a little bit more difficult for builders to be creative when using that underfloor protection. So we've gotten comments on that, and we're recommending that we don't adopt that recommendation, that we just adopt the code as written. And lastly, we are recommending that the city adopt the International Property Maintenance Code. This will kind of go in tandem with our dangerous building code, and our nuisance code gives us a little bit more ability to enforce on properties, for peeling paint, falling gutters and stuff like that without having to call them a dangerous building. So that helps us out, but as part of that process, we have to insert the maximum grass height requirement in that code. So we thought it would be a good time to bring that up. Currently, the city does say that you cannot have your grass grow over 6 inches. We polled other communities in the metro and other like-sized communities in central Iowa. The average is closer to 9 to 10 inches with those communities. The most commonly used height requirement is 8 inches. So we were recommending going up to 8 inches to match what other communities are doing. And then there's also some other language in there that deals with buffers on undeveloped property. It also does allow undeveloped property to have a grass height a little bit longer than that 8 inches, and then also a buffer along roads, so we don't have tall grass growing and creating vision issues along our public streets. So Again, that was all in the memo that was included in Ryan's weekly email this past Friday, and that pretty much sums it up. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just want to point out that an 8-inch grass provides a much better lawn because it chokes out the weeds, so I'm in favor of it.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Green Thumb.
From what I've read before I got here, what the explanations were, I would support the staff recommendations on all three.
Yeah.
This is Councilman Schroeder. I agree with everything. I have concerns about the undeveloped properties having the taller grasses, even though there's a buffer. I think I've had complaints from people who live near them, and there are some issues, allergies, snakes, more things like that. Appearance, for my opinion, but, I support staff recommendation, but I would just have those comments to add. Salvo is in support of the staff recommendation.
I support the staff recommendation as well.
Direction?
We do, and we'll certainly be prepared to give presentations as the council considers the formal update of these aspects of the code. So just in the interest of time and since it's been provided
Sure, thank you.
multiple times.
Thanks, Charlie. I really appreciate the presentation. Nice job.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
The only other thing then on the agenda is item D and other business enter the closed session pursuant to Iowa Code section 21.51C to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, whereas disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the decision of the governmental body in that litigation.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
We will move into closed session then.
Need a roll call.
Councilmember Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Southall,
Aye.
Marchant.
Aye.
Very
Mayor,
good, please.
Mayor-
Brian, let me know when the room's clear and then we'll go on.
yeah, we
Councilmember Hewlin?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Kling? Kling?
Aye.
Schroeder?
Aye.
Southall?
Aye.
Marchant?
Aye.
Thanks, council, once again, keep away from each other.
Thank you. You can just hang
I think that was a success.
All right.
Heather
Gotta
watched-
take the wins
Heather
where we
watched
can
it
get
for a
'em.
while.